State tonight and the Padres downtown tonight against the Cardinals. Our pregame coverage for Aztecs Broncos are right out at Snapdragon Stadium. Will begin at 5:30. But over the next couple hours, Jim, really good guest, Kevin Acee, our Padres insider at 4:30.
Yes.
JB Long, voice of the Rams, will join us at 4. Rams will play on Monday Night Football right here on San Diego Sports 760 Monday at 5:15. Paul Garrison, as he does each and every week, will get us ready for San Diego State. He'll join us coming up at 3:30, but all eyes right now are on the Padres.
Are they?
As you heard from our big voice guy, the hottest team in baseball, Jim. There is no team that's won 7 consecutive games other than the Padres. They are still alive for a playoff spot, as I was telling you yesterday. They got the breaks they needed yesterday, not as much earlier today with the Cubs win. So the Padres have an elimination number of 5. They have 9 games to play. You said it accurately in the update. They need to win tonight, and they likely need to win every single game they play. You laugh at it, but I still think if they win every single game they play, we'll see if that's plausible or not, they'll put some pressure on. So if they could somehow continue winning, remain the hottest team in baseball, I think they'll put some pressure on. That's the way I look at it. Now, again, if that doesn't happen, which is likely, if it doesn't happen, they don't get everything go their way, there are tons of question marks. And the CEO of the Padres earlier today on the flagship station talked about some of those question marks. We talked about it briefly there during the fusion, the fact that he questioned, which surprised me, the roster construction, which is by his peer, right? AJ Preller. That surprised me. So, listen, if they don't get the 1 in 100 bingo card, there's going to be some serious questions, and maybe those have already begun inside their front office.
Yeah, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that.
Doing what?
I'm not putting myself in a situation to even think.
You don't think normally. You don't have to.
Of them making the postseason.
You don't have to.
I'm not going. I know. You. I know. I'm saying you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other people will do it.
Yeah, you can. I mean, people could do what they want, right?
Right. I'm not shaming anybody.
Okay.
I'm not. I've said it all along. They are not a serious baseball team until they're at 500. They're still under 500. I think this is a fallacy to think that this team, 1, can make the postseason, and 2, can do anything if they made the postseason. I think that potentially this could hurt them by masking issues and using it to mask issues within the organization that need to be fixed ASAP. That's how I feel. I know I see people on social media like, I'm back in it. I'm ready to go. I see it on the text line, see it on YouTube. Like, I think they can do it.
You don't want to hear that. Pour cold water on that. I don't want people believing in that.
This team has sucked. This team has sucked for the first 5 months of the season. They have.
Okay.
They've been a bad baseball team all year long. So what should give me any type of hope that now that, guess what, the pressure's back on them, because the last couple of weeks there was no pressure. They're playing great baseball. And even Tatis alluded to it and acknowledged it, how the pressure got to them this year, yesterday, and then mentioned, we were both like, wait, why are you talking about eyewash? Like, what are you talking about? So now, guess what? The pressure's back on them.
Is it though? You're saying, and I think a lot of people agree that, hey, it's a fallacy. It's a long shot. I mean, is the pressure on tonight, being 4.5 games out of a playoff spot against the Cardinals at home?
They got to be perfect, John.
But they did 7 days ago too have to be perfect. That hasn't stopped them to this point.
Did they have to be?
Yeah, they absolutely had to be.
Do you honestly think that they started that series in Oakland thinking to themselves, we got to be perfect from here on out?
No, but I know that if they would have lost the game in Oakland, that they wouldn't even be in this situation.
So that's my point, is now going into this series,
I think that they have a chance.
Yeah, we have to be perfect now.
Maybe.
Because you look at the lineup tonight. That lineup is...
They're pitching Matt Waldron.
I know they are, but they have nobody else.
Right. I guess not. They could pitch Nick Martinez. They didn't.
They're pitching Nick Martinez tomorrow.
Okay.
They're pitching, I think...
Pedro Avila?
I don't know. They're pitching Sunday. But anyway, my point is, lineup tonight, Kim has missed how many games?
It's been a handful now.
Yeah. I mean, Machado, right? He's in and out every other day. He's only being a DH tonight.
Right.
Like, we've seen a lot of Eggy Rosario and a lot of Matthew Batten, and rightfully so. And I want to keep seeing him, is Luis Campusano, right? But now when you get to a chance where it's like, okay, well, we just got to win out. Kim's back in there. Manny's back in there. Like, to me,
So you think the mindset changes tonight because like now that they've put themselves within like 4.5 games, so like foot on the gas pedal. We didn't have it on the gas pedal, but these teams have come back to us. We know we need to be perfect.
yeah.
So now you think they'll play tight because they know they need to play perfect because that's the team that they've been.
One thing is, I will give them credit. The credit I will give them is by putting out this lineup tonight and winning 7 in a row, they have not laid down. They have not quit.
Right.
Like when I say they have not laid down, I don't mean like, oh, they haven't just, said we're not making the postseason. So like, I mean, like they've actually gone out there. They've played good baseball. The Soto and Bogarts, especially this month, they've gone out there and they've had some pride. There's some pride with some of these players. And that's a good thing. But in the end, it's not going to really mean much to me because I can't celebrate a team that's around 500. I can't celebrate a team that's still under 500. And if they happen to get close, I am sitting there thinking to myself, oh God, they're going to use this as an excuse. This is going to be bad. That's how I view it.
Walk-up pitches on Saturday. Or on Sunday.
Okay. Michael Walk on Sunday.
Sorry. Walk-up pitches. They're going for it, baby.
Okay, a couple of things. So Eric Rupner this morning on the Padres flagship said he had an acknowledgement that the roster construction was too top-heavy. Now, this is the CEO of the Padres who oversees business operations. Mm-hmm. He's not the owner of the Padres that oversees both baseball operations and business operations. So I find that to be curious comments. He also added credence to what Kevin Acee wrote in the UT and Dennis Lin and Ken Rosenthal wrote in the Athletic because he said that there were no inaccuracies. He didn't say it was unfair or wrong. What Dennis wrote and what Kevin wrote. So all that bashing that went on for like a week-long period. Oh, Kevin doesn't know. Oh, Dennis wrote this in 2021. Oh, I don't know about this. Eric Rupner now hasn't discredited it. Bob Melvin hasn't discredited it.
Of course not.
So all this discounting of that, like the organization is admitting as such about some of the issues that have been brought to the attention in these articles the last 7 days.
We're not in the know like Dennis Lin, obviously, and Kevin Acee, but we've said this the last couple of days. Did me and you especially, did we need these articles to come out to know that there's problems? Like, no, we didn't. Because we see it with our own two eyes. Mm-hmm. Some things you might hear, but like, as far as the in-depth problems with this team, they've been here for as long as Preller's been here. 9 years. That's it. You don't need any more scathing pieces on how bad Preller is as a GM and how the culture with Preller in charge is not a good one. Like I don't need any more articles like that because I just see it with my two eyes. I know.
I personally don't need any articles about it because all that I care about is whether they win or they lose. So if they're 75 and 78, that's not going to cut it. If they're 90 and 72, that will cut it. And 75 and 78 isn't good enough. Just like in 2021, it wasn't good enough. Just like in 2019, it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Just like the first 3 or 4 years of the rebuild, they didn't do enough to put them in position to really turn that thing over the last couple of years. So that's how I see it. I think at the end of the year, they're going to be judged based on wins and losses. But when I hear Eric Rupner talk about too top heavy and roster construction, I begin to think about AJ Preller's future, which surprises me a little bit. I wouldn't think that Rupner necessarily is going to determine Preller's future. They're on an equal playing field, you'd be led to believe, unless that's changed because of Peter Seidler's health. But the fact that Eric would question the roster, does that surprise you at all? It surprised me a ton.
Well, and one of the questions I'm going to ask Kevin today is who's in charge?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's making decisions? What's the hierarchy with the Padres right now? Because as far as I'm concerned, Eric Rupner should never have anything to do with talking about roster construction or like the payroll or anything. Because I think his job as CEO, and he's done a great job at it, is the ballpark, the giveaways, the everyday operations inside that ballpark, charities and sponsorships and TV rights. And, I didn't know he had anything to do with roster construction. And maybe he doesn't.
Neither did I.
Maybe he doesn't. But you get my point is payroll. Like, I didn't know that he had any say in any of those
I think
things.
payroll makes sense because of business operations. Roster to me doesn't. I don't hear AJ Preller. Like, think about it the other way. Do you ever hear AJ Preller critiquing the marketing of the franchise?
Like, man, those bobbleheads the other night. I don't.
Like, yeah, I thought we had too many giveaways in the first half of the season as opposed to the second half, and that's why our crowds weren't as good. Like, you would
guys,
never hear that.
Too much 98.
Yeah, too much 98 bobbleheads, guys. Can we move forward here?
So isn't that like, doesn't that raise your eyebrows? Like, hold on, Eric Rupner is questioning the construction of the roster. Is that a stay in your lane type situation or not? Or is he overseeing ownership right now with Peter Seidler going through health issues?
That and I agree with you. Like, that was a definite eyebrow raiser to me, but that wasn't even the biggest eyebrow raiser for me.
Okay.
Of it all. If we're looking, John, because the articles and talking about dysfunction and okay, that's right. But you have even said, you just recently said it, like, all I care about is wins and losses.
Correct.
You know, the biggest thing to me that stood out was, this payroll's going down, and it's going down by probably a lot because you got a $250 million payroll right now. All right. It's been reported by Kevin and Dennis that this payroll is going down. Dennis today talking about, Darren, how, Peter's like selling off parts of the franchise, and the TV deal is a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
And, you got some issues with this payroll. And even if it is going down to, like, I'll go on the high end, say $200 million. All right. $200 million. That's still, for the Padres in any year, is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They have, I think, 7 or 8 players locked up for $150 million next year. And that's not including arbitration of Juan Soto. And that's also not including bringing back some guys like Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo.
Okay.
So if you got, I don't know, let's just throw out a number for Soto, $30 million. Okay. In arbitration, that's a pretty big number right there per year.
Is.
So now if you got $150 million, let's do math, John. I'm not good at it, but let's do it.
Well, hold on.
$150
Is the
million.
150 here? What does Spot Track say? They're 2024 commitments right now.
Yeah, give me it, because you've said it before.
Yeah, but I want to know what the actual number is.
High.
I mean, it's obviously a big number. The question is, what is the number? Is it 100? Yeah, so their 2024 payroll commitments right now are already $159 million.
Okay, and that is without counting Juan Soto's arbitration. Correct.
That does not include Juan Soto's arbitration, I don't believe.
Does that include Michael Wacha and potentially Seth Lugo returning?
That does include Michael Wacha. That does include Seth Lugo, because they are technically under contract until they're not.
But they have opt-outs.
Correct. But if they opt in, you're at 159.
Does anybody think Seth Lugo's going to opt in for just $7 million?
Right. 7.5, probably not. Does Michael Wacha opt in? Maybe. At 16 million, your point's valid. But no, you're right. You're at 159 potentially without Juan Soto. I don't see how the payroll could possibly be under 200 million.
Add $30 million to Juan Soto. That's $189 million right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, 9 players?
It's Bogarts, Musgrove, Machado, Darvish, Martinez, Wacha, Tatis, Suarez, Lugo, Cronenworth, Kim, Carpenter, who they'll pay either way.
All right, so that's 12 players.
So it's half your team. Half your team's 180, 190?
Yeah. And then that's with Juan Soto.
That's
correct?
with Juan Soto if you say
Okay.
180, 190.
Okay.
You're right. And so how do you get the other half of the team?
And nothing will be perfect there, because I don't think Seth Lugo's opting in for 7 points.
No, of course you'll get a little bit back if someone opts out.
Right. I think there will be, from that core you said there. I mean, are they really going to keep Matt Carpenter for another year? I don't know.
No, but they'll pay it.
But they'll pay it.
Yeah.
So things will be different. But that's my point. Is the biggest thing I took away from that is, I don't know an out here.
Right.
Like
I agree with
they're screwed almost. And for anybody out there thinking this team will be 100% better next year because this year was just a fluke, and let's run it back. They literally can't run it back, guys. Like, they can't. They're missing a Cy Young, and they're missing the best closer in the game, and they're going to have to look for like 3, probably 4 starting pitchers potentially if Wacha and Lugo opt out. So I that's what I took away from today, and also what I'm taking away from Dennis and Kevin's reporting. Like, and it's another reason why AJ Preller should be fired. Like, this is another notch to not only just his winning has been not there, but he has put this team in such a bind for the next foreseeable future with costs and money that I don't know how you can honestly say that this team will 100% just be this 90-plus win team next year when there are so many holes. The payroll's going down. They're like bleeding money. They're not making any profit here. That to me was what stood out the most from today.
Well, that I've been saying repeatedly, if anyone's been listening, that changing the general manager changes nothing for 2024. Like it literally changes nothing because Eric Rupner today said there's no fire sale, there's no wholesale change.
I know.
And that maybe they'll trim payroll, but he didn't have a number. And it's going to be very hard to trim payroll with what they have coming back. So whether AJ Preller is back or not, he's put himself and or the next GM in a tough spot.
Are they still paying Hosmer next year too?
They have dead money. They have dead money for 2024 of $12 million.
Okay.
For Eric Hosmer. Which actually might be higher than that in AAV.
Probably.
But whatever.
Yeah.
That includes that, by the way.
Okay.
That includes that.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I understand, John. Like just changing the GM right now isn't going to fix the problems that this GM has created for this team. But don't you think to yourself, like, enough's enough? I don't want him to do any more damage to this team going forward.
Listen, if they're out, Jim, I'm 100% with you. And then I would advocate, like you have advocated, for like staying the same as falling behind. And when I hear Eric Rupner say what he said today, I'm wondering if they are thinking along the same lines, that this isn't some open and shut case that just because he's under contract through 2026, he's guaranteed to come back. I don't know. I heard Dennis today say that there's a non-zero chance that AJ Preller isn't retained.
Higher than 0.6%.
So a non-zero. But he didn't say it's a 30% chance they move on from him or a 60% chance.
So that's my question is, like, who's running the team right now? Who is making the decisions?
Right.
Is it still Peter, although he's, dealing with something much more important right now, and that's his health? Or has he given full, veto power to somebody else? Is it Grupner? Who is it?
Right.
Who's making the decisions? Is it Preller that Peter, loves and thinks he's the best GM in the history of the sport and he's excellence? Like, who has the authority here to make decisions over roster construction, and who is in charge of roster construction? Like, what is going to happen? And by the way, another question, the first question that I think needs to be asked, regardless, is like, is Bob returning next year or not?
Well, here's the thing. We're going to know all the answers in 9 days, right? 9 days from now is Sunday of next week. Next Monday is Black Monday. So we'll know everything within 10 days. You don't wait on managers. You typically don't wait on general managers. We should know a lot in the next week and a half. All right, we're going to get to it with Kevin Acee. He's going to join us at 4:30. Paul Garrison from the East Village Times joins us each and every Friday to preview San Diego State. Aztecs have a huge one coming up tonight against Boise State at Snapdragon. Our pregame coverage will begin at 5:30. Paul Garrison's going to join us on the other side. We have a 4-pack of tickets to give away today to SeaWorld's Howl O Scream. Do we still have tickets to the Poway Rodeo to give away today, Brent? We're going to check on that. We've got the Howl O Scream tickets to give away. We'll do that during Trainwreck Radio. Do we have the Poway Rodeo tickets or not? We don't. All right, we'll give away the Howl O Scream tickets during Trainwreck Radio. Paul Garrison up next. Kevin Acee at 4:30. Stay with us. It's Jon and Jim.
Yeah, answer that puzzle. Thanks for the super, Maurice.
Thank you, Maurice.
He says, question for me.
Wow.
Yeah, he says, how can they fire Preller since a new GM always wants to bring in his own guy? Well, it's very easy.
With the manager?
Yeah, it's very easy. It's very easy. Like, you fire your GM, and the GM always doesn't want to bring in the new guy. But, I mean, that's right. Like,
well, I think you would. That's probably most people would be okay with probably changing. If you're going to change the GM and you have to change the manager, even Jim would probably be cool with that, as opposed to not changing the GM and keeping the manager.
Right.
What has a bigger impact on the future of the team, the GM or the manager? Probably the GM.
If Bob Melvin's collateral damage for Preller, I'd have to think hard about that. Like, I legitimately would.
And does your new GM really want to get rid of Bob Melvin? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
That's probably not order number one.
No, I don't think Bob Melvin's even close to the problem with the team. Like, I don't think the GM's going to come in here and be like, you know what? Looking from afar, the problem with you guys is obviously Bob Melvin. So that's the first change I make.
Right. Maybe you keep him at least for a year. Because you know what? Because you have that year. Because if after 1 year you got rid of Bob Melvin, nobody's going to say it's on you. Like
Right.
you have that grace to get rid of the previous manager and bring in a new one.
Yeah.
If you're the new GM.
And if you can't work with Bob, it's more or less on you than Bob. So thanks for the super chat, Maurice. Appreciate it, man. If you guys want to send super chats, we'll get them during the break. Also, make sure to become a member of the channel. Special perks, badges, emojis, special Monday broadcast with just members only. So do that, and we'll talk to you guys after the break.
Subscribe.
Oh, and subscribe and like.
All right, Kevin Acee at 4:30, JB Long, voice of the Rams at 4, Paul Garrison, East Village Times, previews tonight, Aztecs and Broncos. That's next.
All right, this update's brought to you by Staples Stores. Padres, Cardinals start a 3-game series tonight at Petco Park, the final home series of the year for the Padres. 6:40 first pitch. Matt Waldron on the mound for the Pods. Cubs won today, John. I'm sorry to say they're now 4.5 back with 9 games to play.
Congratulations, Jim.
Oh no! Why are you congratulating me?
You said I'm sorry to say.
I know I'm not. Why you shouldn't congratulate me? I'm just telling you I'm sorry because you're so like high on this playoff chase.
I'm into it. I am.
And the Aztecs, they take on Boise State tonight, 7:30 kickoff, 5:30 pregame. Starts right here on San Diego Sports 760. And this update's been brought to you by Staples.
All right, Jon and Jim back with you. We've got Kevin Acee on the show at 4:30. JB Long, voice of the Rams, gets us ready for Monday Night Football here on San Diego Sports 760. He'll join us at 4. And right now, Paul Garrison, as he does each and every week, getting us ready for San Diego State tonight. A huge one in the Mountain West at Snapdragon Stadium. You can hear it right here on San Diego Sports 760. Ted Leitner, Rich Ornberger on the call at 7:30. Our pregame coverage will begin from outside Snapdragon Stadium at 5:30. And Paul back with us here on Jon and Jim. So, Paul, we appreciate it. What did you see last week in terms of progress that you think could carry over here potentially tonight for the Aztecs?
I think probably the biggest thing of progress is there was a lot of separation for their receivers a week ago. They had 4 drops, maybe 5 drops, depending on how you look at one of them. But there was space. They found some room in the crossing routes. That they were able to get extra yards. I think that they didn't have as many assignment errors that led to the big plays. It was schematically a missed tackle that allowed Oregon State to have the 175-yard pass. But for the most part, I think that if you go to Corvallis and if Oregon State is truly the 15th ranked team in the country, I think San Diego State left that game thinking that, they could have been a lot more competitive, which means they should be a pretty good football team.
Paul, could you make the case that this is, with obviously the remaining schedule too, but like this game is the biggest game of their season?
I think there's no question. I think it's been since 2018 was the last time that the San Diego State football team has lost 3 games in a row. And obviously they can go on a run after this and they can make any loss that they have not mean as much, but just trying to look ahead and saying that, it's only going to be 1, maybe 2 losses that they can afford if they're going to get into a Mountain West championship game, which means if they lose at home to a conference foe, they're going to basically have to go undefeated to be able to get there, which I think makes this not only the biggest game this year, but so far this year, but maybe a must win that they got to make sure they have tonight.
No doubt. Big game for San Diego State at 7:30. Big game for Boise State as well. You can hear it here on San Diego Sports 760. Paul Garrison from the East Village Times joining us right now on Jon and Jim. Paul, what are you seeing from Jalen Mayden compared to what you saw a year ago from the quarterback?
I think that Jalen Mayden has been very competitive this year. I think last year he was trying to find his footing, and he was trying to figure out who he was in, kind of coming back to the quarterback position. But I think that he's been by far San Diego State's most competitive player on offense. Oregon State's quarterback, he was a 5-star top recruit out of the country, went to Clemson, played really well there, transfers to Oregon State. And I think that, you could make a pretty easy case that Jalen Mayden was better than him on Saturday.
Paul, last year the Aztecs had a 13-0 lead, or they had a 13-point lead going against Boise State. And then Boise State ripped off 30+ points to kind of blow out the Aztecs last year. What about this game tonight do they have to do to make sure that does not happen?
I mean, the strangest part about last year's game was the Boise State's offensive coordinator who was just kind of filling in because they were replacing their offensive coordinator as well. Last year, he did not come back this season. He basically ran like 4 or 5 plays the entire second half, and San Diego State just couldn't stop those 4 or 5 plays. And so I think that, in listening to the press conference this week, they all have this game kind of circled because they want to correct what happened and get another chance to kind of pay back what took place. But I think for everything from the defensive standpoint, I think it comes down to stopping the run. If they can force Boise State's quarterback Green to stay in the pocket and have to be accurate, I think that's not a recipe for success for Boise State. And, you can guarantee they're going to see that middle screen that Oregon State had so much success with. And they're also going to see that same running play that Boise State was able to, for just the second half, be able to, whether it was the QB run or just the read option, to be able to get that. And so I think it's stopping the run and tackling in space. And I think that, to be able to correct what happened a year ago.
Paul Garrison, East Village Times with us. San Diego State, Boise State tonight at Snapdragon at 7:30 here on San Diego Sports 760. Paul, do you look at San Diego State, Boise State as a rivalry?
I think without question. And they play in the Mountain West, which is a relatively new conference. And so rivalries, don't mean as much as, you could see, teams playing for 100 years. But I absolutely think that they're a rivalry. I mean, San Diego State is the only team in the Mountain West that Boise State does not own a winning record against. I think these games mean a little bit more to both of these programs. And, for lack of maybe more natural rivals, there's not a Seattle Mariners to the San Diego Padres that the Aztecs have. I think they need Boise State to be a rivalry. I think it's something that the fans can get excited about. And, I think that talent-wise, in terms of like who's in the NFL and stuff like that, I think these are the two best teams in the Mountain West.
Paul, 4 games into this season, Boise State, you got Ryan Lindley, new offensive coordinator. How so far do you think he has done as offensive coordinator? And do you think that eventually, they need to open up this playbook a little more?
It's interesting to say. I was up in Corvallis this last weekend, and I asked Coach Hoke that after the game, and he gave a glowing assessment of Ryan Lindley in the first 4 games that he's called as an offensive coordinator. And I think there's signs of progress. I believe it was that San Diego State got into Oregon State territory 9 out of 11 times on Saturday. And so they were moving the football. They just couldn't finish drives. They couldn't find that consistency. Jalen Maiden said post-game last week that, they had a penalty or they had a missed block or something that just kind of stopped them. He didn't talk about the drop passes, of course, but that was also a part of it. And so I think that that Ryan Lindley has shown, they've shown progress in the offense. Some of the stuff that everyone was looking and saying, oh man, they didn't play so good against Ohio. But the points that San Diego State scored is the most that any team has scored against Ohio. And Ohio just beat Iowa State 10-7 this past week. And so that doesn't quite look as bad of a performance. And so I think, they would be great if they could open it up. I'm not sure if the vertical passing game is the strength of Jalen Maiden, but Ryan Lindley has done a great job, I think, in calling screens and trying to get his playmakers space. If a tackle here or a broken tackle, a juke could have sprung a couple of those crossing routes, could have brought those open. And so I think he looks a lot better that way. But I think that they're moving the ball, and they absolutely, if they can start finishing drives, not have turnovers in the red zone, which they've had the last 2 weeks, they can start making those progress to putting up a lot of points.
Paul Garrison, East Village Times, does a great job covering San Diego State athletics. Paul, we appreciate you joining us each and every week, and we'll see you tonight out at Snapdragon Stadium. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Paul Garrison, again, East Village Times. On the other side, if the Padres keep winning, how does it impact the possible return of Joe Musgrove? He just spoke with the media within the last 15 minutes. We'll share with you what he had to say. Plus, JB Long, voice of the Rams at 4 p.m. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, joins us at 4:30. Stay with us on Jon and Jim. Hey guys, it's Schaefer, and I've been telling you about Windmill Farms, the college area's natural grocer. They've got you covered all weekend long for your game day needs with football back, featuring organic farm fresh produce and meats. An amazing craft beer selection. You need to see it. They also have a full deli with award winning sandwiches. This is a great spot for your lunch hour. Make sure to check them out. A great deli, great spot to go during your lunch hour. They're centrally located off of Del Cerro Boulevard, across the freeway from Montezuma Mesa. Windmill Farms is your family-owned market serving the San Diego area for 20 years. Again, get ready for your weekend. All your game day needs, they have them for you at Windmill Farms. Now, you can always visit windmillfarmsmarket.com to see their weekly specials. Also, they're now on Instacart. You can have your groceries delivered to your doorstep. But again, weekly specials, check those out. windmillfarmsmarket.com. Get ready for your weekend and all your game day needs over at Windmill Farms. And again, shop local, shop at Windmill Farms. All right, JB Long, voice of the Rams, will join us at 4 p.m. Kevin Acee is our Padres insider. He will join us at 4:30. Jon and Jim back with you. San Diego Sports 760, always free, by the way, on the iHeart Radio app. Now, Joe Musgrove, Jim, has spoken with the media. And well, first of all, I guess he began throwing today. So this is Andy Halpern. Joe Musgrove said he was always going to resume throwing today as part of his program, but with the Padres getting within 4 games of the wild card, he said he'll pace the guys as far as backing off if there are losses and ramping things up slightly if chances increase. So if the Padres get closer over the next handful of days, Joe Musgrove's going to ramp up. If they fall out of it, well, obviously he's not going to ramp up. He went on to say that his goal would be to contribute but not start. His goal would be to contribute but not start if the Padres make an improbable run. So Joe Musgrove is not willing to say this is yet over based on the way he's, I don't know, preparing or planning right now or going about his business with 9 days to go in the season.
Don't pitch again. Don't even attempt to pitch again. What are we doing here, Joe? I'm sorry. I know you got some competitive juices, but stop. It's just stop. I don't know if he truly thinks that or
if he's just saying it.
If he's just saying it.
Well, why is he throwing today?
I think it was always going to be some type of just throw day for him. I don't know why.
Yeah, because you're throwing in September, but you're not coming back. I guess maybe it's on part of the road back.
Maybe it's a part of the rehab, just to strengthen your arm a little bit before you shut it down for a while.
Right.
In the off season. Just to make sure everything is good to go, and then you don't ramp up after not pitching for so long, and whenever he does, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But even if they get close, even if it's 3 games with 4 to play, that's a massive long shot. 3 games, 3 games with 5 to play, 3 games with 6 to play.
Right, 2 games with 4 to play.
Don't
come back. Just shut it down.
Shut it down, dude. This ain't worth it.
Yeah, you can't risk 2024 over this outside shot, which is a 1 in 200. I agree with you.
Yeah.
You can't risk 2024. And by the way, no matter what happens here, that's a big question mark. Like Manny Machado's elbow, Joe Musgrove's health is a big part of 2024.
Right.
And there's going to be a big question mark over his offseason. Is he going to be the pitcher he was in 2021 and 2022?
And to talk about Manny there, it's the longer you wait to get surgery for your elbow, and I don't know, but it just doesn't feel like you're going to be ready to go. But by the time the season starts next year, when you take on the Dodgers in Korea,
I don't know either. He said 6 or 7 months. If that's accurate, he won't be ready.
And there's other people that are saying 4 to 5. But even if it's 4 to 5,
well, he's not. If Manny hasn't shut it down yet,
he's not shutting it down.
Absolutely not shutting it down.
And honestly, John, he's hurting the team by being out there.
You think?
Yeah. Have you looked at his numbers lately?
Let me see.
Look at his numbers.
Manny Machado September? Or even more recent?
More recent.
Okay.
The last week and a half. How about since the Kevin Acee article was report?
Okay, I love that. What day was that?
Last Friday.
Oh, yeah, because we had him on. Kevin, not Manny.
Right.
Manny didn't come on.
He did not.
What's today? The 22nd? So from the 15th on?
Yes.
It's only 4 games. From the 15th on.
He's only played 4 games.
He's only played in 4 games. Exactly. So, we can read into it if you want. But the 4 games, he is 2 for 17.
You're not helping your team.
Right. Small sample size, wouldn't you say?
Give me the last 2 weeks.
I'll give you since September 1st. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. Since September 1st, 254, 742 OPS. Basically who he's been. 3 homers.
So he's not really helping the team. That's my point.
I don't know who they got this really. I don't know. I would want to see more of.
They don't. But
right, he's not carrying them.
No,
there's no question.
There's no point in pushing yourself when you're not really playing well to begin with, and you're not helping the team, and you're hurting yourself into potentially next year.
Right.
That's where I'm like, dude.
So you're saying, yeah, and
stop.
we both said that. When it was even more remote, when it was a 1 in 1,000, we're like, dude, what are you doing? Now it's still 1 in hundreds, and it's still what are you doing? Unless someone says he can do it and come back in 3 or 4 months and be good to go next spring training. 6-7 months. That's a long time no matter what. Even if you shut it down weeks ago, 6 or 7 months is cutting into next year, even if you shut it down, probably.
I know.
You know?
That is what upset me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what upset Padres fans. It's like, you're not really doing much this year to help the team.
Right.
You have some nice home run numbers, but overall, your OPS is the worst it's been in potentially your whole career.
Mm-hmm.
Your batting average is like falling off a cliff.
Right.
You're not really getting on base a lot. You're not playing in the field. You're not really
like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing here? What are you doing?
Well, maybe it's also a reaction to what Kevin wrote and what Dennis wrote. Like, I'm not going to shut it down if I'm the supposed leader. What does it say about my leadership? If I shut it down, we're not eliminated.
Well, it should say, hey, I know my limitations, and right now I'm not helping the team.
Right.
So as a leader, I'm not going to hurt this team even more by going out there with one arm and continuously going 0 for 4.
Right. Yeah, it's fair. I agree.
Like that's a leader, dude. Hey, I know when I need to step down, and I know when I need to give other people the opportunity to play because I'm not personally helping this team out right now.
Well, that's why, I kind of respected what Tatis did late last year after all the negativity and all the attention. He said, you know what? I'll get the shoulder done. I'll just do it.
Well, he had no choice.
I wasn't going to. He had no choice.
I mean, for his image and for him to push back again, I guess, to the franchise to get in surgery.
I didn't think he had much of a choice either.
Okay.
He kind of dug himself in a hole where he kind of had to be a good soldier, so to speak.
All right, maybe. Well, I thought it was. I didn't know it was going to happen.
Imagine if you told the Padres and Preller and Seidler, yeah, I know I effed up here and I know I got suspended and everything, but again, I'm not getting the surgery, dude.
Yeah, maybe.
Bad.
Maybe, although heading into the year, he wasn't going to get the shoulder done. Because heading into the year, we didn't know there was going to be a PED suspension. Heading into 2022, like he was not going to get the shoulder done until he screwed up. Right?
I know, and that's why
he owed them one.
Like, hey, I'm going to do what you tell me. Not like to that sense, but like I'm going to listen to the advice of people that want the best for me instead of being stubborn and not getting it because I don't want to get surgery.
Right. Well, maybe that's where we are with Manny. But I guess Manny has much less pressure on him because he's basically representing ownership.
Pretty much.
He'll be up there the final day of the season. Here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Bob, you're back.
I mean, Don Tricker should be up at the podium as well. Do you hear what Dennis said today about him?
I didn't.
He is one of the most highly paid people in this organization, only behind like Preller and Melvin and maybe like 2 other people. It goes Preller. This is what Dennis said. Yeah. It goes Preller, it goes Melvin, and then it's basically like Don Tricker.
Really?
Yeah.
More than Grubner?
That's what Dennis said. Like
what's his title?
Like 3rd or 4th highest paid person.
Do you know what his title is?
Random guy.
That's his title?
Yeah.
And we don't really know what he does. I mean, I read the article, but we don't exactly know.
Dennis is like, yeah, sorry he caught all the heat here, but it kind of just
he did catch a lot of flack.
He did, because no one knew who Don Tricker was.
Is this a Don Tricker issue, though?
No, it's not.
You know what I mean? Like, just because they're paying him a lot, is that on Don Tricker, or does that speak more to the organization?
No, if I'm Don Tricker and someone offers me that much money, I'm like, of course. But it just speaks to the fact of like, what are they doing?
Yeah. All right, JB Long is the voice of the Rams. So join us on the other side. He's calling Monday Night Football. You can hear it on San Diego Sports 760. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, who's in charge right now with the Padres. Kevin Acee will join us at 4:30. It's hour 2 of Jon and Jim, and it's next.
All right, this update is brought to you by Staples Stores. Padres, Cardinals, final home series of the year for the Padres. 6:40 first pitch, Matt Waldron on the mound for the Pods. Moving over to the Aztecs tonight. Big game as they start conference play against Boise State. It is a red out. 7:30 kickoff. 5:30 is when our pregame coverage starts right here on San Diego Sports 760. And this update's been brought to you by Staples.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? Hour 2 of Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760, always free on the iHeartRadio app as well. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, will join us in 30 minutes. Great to catch up right now with JB Long, voice of the LA Rams. They'll be in Cincinnati for Monday Night Football. You can hear it right here on San Diego Sports 760, Monday at 5:15. And JB back with us here on Jon and Jim. And we always appreciate it. And I think we got to start really with the status of Joe Burrow. Is Burrow out, or what are the expectations for Joe Burrow? Because that's a huge part of Monday night, isn't it?
It is a huge, maybe the biggest part of Monday night. Good to be with you guys. Hope your Friday's going well. I think I was in the default position of he's got to play, right? Because of how much is on the line for an 0-2 Cincinnati team. But the more I tap into the local reporting there, including the fact that owner Mike Brown drove Joe Burrow around practice for a short golf cart ride and conversation today, which he's never done before, is leading to more and more supposition that maybe he won't go. The good news is they have the extra day. I would imagine they take it all the way down to the wire. Why wouldn't they? But they're in a bad way behind Burrow at quarterback.
JB, going back to the previous week, Niners-Rams, I didn't see anything, or maybe I didn't look hard enough, but what was the explanation for the field goal at the end by Sean McVay?
He just wanted to really upset half of Las Vegas.
I figured.
No, it was of course not even something he was aware of, but I think really what they had designs on doing was getting to that spot of the field more efficiently. Kicking a field goal, trying an onside kick to play out the threat. Obviously, the odds were very, very long, and they were a little slow in doing it, and therefore time ran out on them. But another hypothesis is that deep in the NFL tiebreakers, there is like a margin of victory. But again, way, way too much to ask any human being, including a savant like Sean McVay, to be aware of at that moment in time. I think he was just exhausting every possible option competitively in that moment.
Imagine if they get in based on that tiebreaking points. I mean, again, in professional sports, it's like you want to cover your bases. I mean, they're in the business of trying to win, and we'll see if they can get into the postseason here in 2023. JB Long is with us. He's the voice of the Rams. Puka Nacua, this story is amazing. Are we expecting this to continue? He's had 25 catches already. I don't know what the pace is for that, but it's a lot of catches. I would say 1 million catches. So do you expect this to continue?
So a few bits of context. He already has the most catches for any NFL player in his first 3 games in the pros, and Puka's only played 2. So he's passed the likes of Anquan Bolden on that list. I also think it's worth remembering or pointing out that not only was he a 5th round pick, he was the 4th Rams pick of the 5th round. They chose 3 other players who I think highly of ahead of Puka in that 5th round. So that's just how far out of left field he's come. Now, I think he was a very productive college player, did have some injury concerns. Maybe that's why his draft stock suffered, but now that I see him in person, what a load he is to contend with, I can certainly understand why the Rams liked him in the draft process and why he's so intentional and productive early, because he took full advantage of the absence of Cooper Kupp, not just in these first 4 games, but throughout the offseason program to connect with Matthew Stafford and get right with the guy who's ultimately a kingmaker in the National Football League. Look at Matthew Stafford's record with receivers going all the way back to Megatron in Detroit. I'm not saying Megatron wouldn't have been a stud without Matthew Stafford, but if you want to put up big numbers, if you want to be a fantasy darling, being aligned with Matthew Stafford is not the worst play.
And speaking of Matthew Stafford, looks like he's healthy now. He was not healthy last year. With a healthy Matthew Stafford, even though, I don't know if the expectation for this Rams team is Super Bowl, but a playoff spot, potential wild card berth, I do think with a healthy Matthew Stafford, and if you get Cooper Kupp back, is a real possibility. Just speak to how, Matthew Stafford's looked so far this year, and, how important is it for Matthew Stafford to remain healthy for the remainder of the season for the Rams?
He looks like he's found the fountain of youth. Doesn't he give you the feeling when you see him playing like this that the Rams have a chance against any opponent, anywhere, any day?
Yeah.
Like, that's the value, I think, of having an elite head coach and a top-notch quarterback. Now, some were saying that the end of Matthew Stafford being in that elite tier of quarterbacks, if he ever was there, if they agreed he ever was there in the first place, had come to an end based on last year's injury and results. But I think the Rams have really strategically gone to work crafting an offensive line and a scheme around him. Sean McVay has kind of reinvented himself. He's brought offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur into the mix. They've gotten bigger up front, especially guard to guard. And the wall they've built in Matthew Stafford so far has really benefited him. Consider that he's second in the league in passing dropbacks, but he's only been sacked once. That is a ginormous departure from where they were protecting Matthew Stafford and on the offensive line last year. And it's no surprise that he's putting up the types of numbers that he is. Just wait until he starts throwing touchdowns to receivers or tight ends. He hasn't done that yet, and they've been really productive offensively.
JB Long is the voice of the Rams. Rams, Bengals, Monday Night Football in Cincinnati, 5:15. You can hear it right here on San Diego Sports 760. JB, if you wouldn't mind, taking our listeners through the logistics of the next two games for the Rams are Monday in Cincinnati, Ohio, followed by Sunday in Indianapolis, right? So what's that week like for the Rams with all the travel and the logistics? And that becomes a really short week on the back end, doesn't it?
It does. All the benefit of having the extra day here kind of swings back around the opposite way. In the short week next week with back-to-back road trips. This is when you'll often see certain NFL teams stay out on the road and have a second mini camp. The Rams have done that previously. I think one of the COVID carry-throughs is that they've just become more special ops with their travel. They're kind of in the night before, out before they even notice that they spent 24 hours on the ground. And so even though it is a tight turn from Monday night in the East to then early Sunday window again in the East in Indianapolis, I think they feel like their better option was to come home to their facility. We'll see whether the results validate that, but you guys know there's sports science for just about anything you want to do, but they believe concretely that they're making the right choice in terms of player performance with this one.
And JB, when Cooper Kupp gets back, how do you expect him to be used with Puka? Is he going to be put back in the slot, or is Puka going to be in the slot, or how should he be used, or how do you think he's going to be used? Because I know a lot of fantasy owners are like, wait a second, when Cooper Kupp gets back, is Puka Nacua's production going to go down? Could you just maybe explain your thoughts and what you think might happen when he returns?
Sure, gladly. First of all, that would be something that Sean McVay likes to term a champagne problem. And as much as Puka is being utilized in the current moment, let's all hope that he's still standing on 2 feet by the time Cooper Kupp does come back in week 5. But if we should be so privileged to see that play out, and I would add Tutu Atwell's unique skill set to the mix too, because he's been terrific at the outset of his third year. What I believe you have is 3 players who can align anywhere on the formation and run the full route tree. And in addition to that, take a handoff. Don't forget that the key play in the Super Bowl was not just Cooper Kupp beating the Bengals with that goal line fade, but taking a jet sweep handoff on 4th and 1 to keep that game-winning drive alive. He can do that. Puka Nacua rushed for 5 touchdowns last year at BYU, and Tutu Atwell's the fastest player on the team. So I think Sean McVay and Mike LaFleur, the offensive coordinator, are salivating at the possibility of using that trio and maybe even Van Jefferson as a 4th in conjunction. I think it would mean really good things for the Rams offensively, even if it takes a bite out of Puka's target share for his fantasy football owners.
Rams Bengals Monday night, 5:15. JB Long, voice of the Rams, on the call right here on San Diego Sports 760. JB, as always, thank you, and we'll do it again next week.
You guys have a great weekend. Appreciate the invitation.
Appreciate your time. JB Long, voice of the Rams. There's an update in the Padres playoff pursuit.
But this game really doesn't. I mean, the Cubs win, so it doesn't matter.
Why do you say that?
Because no matter what, the Padres would still be 4.5 games back.
True, but what if the Cubs don't finish strong? Okay. Cubs close with the Brewers and the Braves.
Okay.
So if the Marlins are in front of the Padres, they'd be left out.
Okay.
You got to pass all the teams, is my point, right?
Just I'll let you just
Marlins.
Whatever.
I know you can't deal with it. I know you don't want to talk about it. That's okay. You can. That's okay. You don't have to talk about it.
No, I'm letting you.
It's
talk
okay.
About it. Yeah, no.
Marlins are trailing the Brewers tonight 2-0. Padres trail the Marlins in the playoff standings. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Got to pass them too.
Yeah.
Got to pass them all. Can't just pass the Cubs. That's not going to get you to the postseason.
Well, hey, the pressure's back on the Padres now, so let's see what they do.
Well, we'll
with it.
see. Let's see if there is. We're going to see how they play tonight. You're right. They might. Maybe they come out flat. Maybe they're tight. Maybe they're swept in the series. It's absolutely a possibility, or maybe they sweep. Also a possibility.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, this is a Cardinals team that has put everyone on the IL for whatever it's worth.
Contreras, Arenado.
Everyone's on the IL.
Yeah.
They've shut this thing down, completely shut this thing down. We'll see if they have anything to play for or not this weekend in San Diego. Right now, let's get to this. Kevin Acee, by the way, will join us at 4:30.
This is for you, Texter. What's the biggest key for the Aztecs tonight against Boise State?
Well, I think they have moved into the chat now on YouTube. You know, flagship station talking about the Padres and Rams on game day. All right. It's a sports talk show. We can talk about other things. The biggest key tonight
is Josh looking for a producing job?
Yeah, you want to produce the show? If your name is Josh, that is also texting our show
right.
as well.
Please.
We'll
send ideas to 70470 starting with team. Just do every segment. 3 p.m., 3:30,
right.
3:45, 4:30, 4:45, 5:30, 5:45.
Apparently to this texter, it's Aztecs.
And book our guests, please.
And run our YouTube channel.
And do promotions.
And social media.
But other than that, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. The biggest key tonight. Man, I think the biggest key for me is the running game. Like, they have not really gotten much out of the running game this year. I think that would help Jalen Maiden tremendously. They haven't really had that big. I don't really count Idaho State. I'm sorry. I really
sure. Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like from their running back position. Jalen Maiden had a great game that game as far as running the ball goes. But you need to get more out of your running backs. You just do, because it's going to open up the play action for Jalen and potentially open up the opportunity to throw the ball down the field. Without that, Jalen Maiden's out there kind of on an island.
My big key is to eliminate chunk plays, because they've allowed way too many of them the last 2 weeks against UCLA and against Oregon State. These 50-yard plays, these 40-yard plays, a couple of 70-plus yard touchdowns. They got to limit chunk plays. They can give up 1 or 2, but not 5 or 6. So that to me is huge. You have to eliminate that. You got to make it tough on Boise State. You have to make them drive the field. You have to find a way to turn them over in a longer drive. So eliminate the chunk plays for Boise State. Give yourself a chance here tonight to be in this game in the fourth quarter, a one-score game, and see if you can win it. Next question.
If you could build around any quarterback in the NFL other than Patrick Mahomes, who would it be?
Good question. Like, I would want to say Joe Burrow. I'd want to say.
Say it.
No, I'm not.
I'm not Brock Purdy.
I'm not saying Brock Purdy, dude. I'm not saying Brock Purdy. He's in a system that elevates him to another level. I don't think he's a Justin Herbert, and I don't think he's a Joe Burrow. I'll say, screw it. Chargers suck, but I'll say Joe Burrow. Chargers are to me.
Can I say this? Because
but Justin Herbert, I like.
I would say Justin Herbert, but just change the team. Like, if I'm taking the quarterback, I would take Justin Herbert. I wouldn't put him on the Chargers. with that level of ineptitude, but I would take Justin Herbert as the player.
That's what I mean. Take the player away
if
from
I could put Justin Herbert on San
Chargers.
Francisco, or if I could put Justin Herbert on the Kansas City Chiefs, he'd be in a much better spot, obviously. So I think Herbert is probably where I would start, but I just wouldn't have him on the LA Chargers.
No.
So you take Herbert over Allen?
Just because Allen's had some struggles here, maybe recently in some of the bigger games. Maybe not. I mean, Josh Allen's a great player.
I think Josh Allen has a tendency to be extremely reckless at times. And I don't, and then there's a part of me that's like, when he becomes this reckless player, I don't know if he knows how to like rein it back. He has the ability to go out there and throw for 380 yards and 4 touchdowns every game. But there are some times where it's like, dude, why are you trying to hurdle middle linebackers in the middle of the field? Like, what are you doing? You know, throwing crazy passes and trying to use his body to get an extra couple yards. I would take Justin Herbert individually away from that crap franchise.
Yeah, I agree with you. Next question.
Is Colorado a college football playoff contender if they beat Oregon this weekend?
1,000%. 1,000%. I think if they beat Oregon in Oregon, well, not in Oregon, but, you know, on the road this weekend, right? I think that could vault them up to a potential top 10 school. And then we got to see what they do against USC. But if they don't beat Oregon this weekend, you can't even talk about. I mean, they're still a really good football team because of Shedeur Sanders. I think having a Heisman caliber quarterback can easily get you to 8 wins, potentially 9, right? But they're in a conference that is just freaking loaded.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think if they beat Oregon, they can afford a loss potentially and still at least be in the conversation. If they lose to Oregon, they'll have to be perfect, and that's probably not realistic. But yeah, if you win in Eugene and you do it without Travis Hunter and you get to 4-0 and you host SC next week, then yeah, I give them at least a realistic shot to pull something off, which would be incredible. Last question.
Which Padres prospect has the brightest future?
I don't know, but I'll give you the prospect that I want to have the brightest future.
Okay.
How about that? I want Robbie Snelling to have the brightest future. I want at least one freaking starting pitcher in this organization to come out of the minors and actually produce and actually perform at an all-star level. You might say Ethan Salas or Graham Pauley or Jackson Merrill, but for me, it starts with pitching. And this team has not had any starting pitching, ever under AJ Preller to come up through the minors and stick with this franchise. So that's why I say Robbie Snelling. I want him to be a guy that is maybe not the 1 or 2, but close to like a reliable piece in starting a rotation and towards the front of your, rotation.
I agree with you. I would say this. Can you hit on Snelling and or Lesko in a relatively short order? Because it's going to be important for them. They can't keep investing in starting pitching via free agency. Can you hit on Snelling and or Lesko soon and have them pay dividends in I don't even know. I don't know what's realistic with Lesko coming off an injury. I don't know what's realistic with Snelling because I'm not watching. But second half 2024, starting 2025, you're going to need these guys to pay off soon.
Because if they don't,
then you just keep doubling down on this rotation
and
in
money,
free agency.
and you're screwed because of how much money you already have to 10, 12, 13 players on this roster. And a 26-man roster, half of your roster is taking up potentially around $200 million if you add the arbitration of Soto and everything.
Which means your other 13 players, the issue is, and they'll be younger, and Eric Rupner talked about it this morning. I mean, yeah, they're going to have an influx of youth. You want to know why? Because they can't afford not to.
Yeah.
There's no way 13 players cost you $200 million, and then you're spending on your other 13 players. You're going to have 6-7 guys making $700K next year. You're going to have 6-7 guys within 1 year of service time.
The Eggy Rosarios, the Matthew Battens of the world, of your bullpen.
You'll have 6-7, I promise you.
Yeah.
It's just how it's going to be.
Because that's what happens when you build a top-heavy roster. And your top-heavy roster is going to need to perform at a high level. And here's also another problem. Bob Melvin, if he happens to return, right?
Mm-hmm.
What has he said recently? He likes to mix and match a lot.
Yes, he
likes to use the entire roster. He doesn't like to have such a top-heavy type of team to where he's never using any of his bench, and you're playing Juan Soto 160 games. It's like the best Juan Soto is probably like 150 games.
Mm-hmm.
The best Xander Bogaerts is probably 145 games. The best Manny Machado, even though he is stubborn and doesn't care about his injuries, will play through anything no matter what. But maybe the best Manny Machado now getting older is 145 games. So with that, you're going to need your bench to help out. You're going to need sometimes your bench to win you games. And they haven't had that all year long until this 7-game winning streak when they didn't think they had any chance. So they put in guys like Eggy Rosario and Matthew Batten and Luis Campusano, and they said, screw it, because who cares? And they started winning.
Yeah, I really like what they've done here with some of these young pieces, and I think they'll probably play a role in 2024, but still there's a difference between having young pieces playing a role and having the depth that's necessary to navigate 162 games. It's one thing to have a bench of Rosario and Batten and Sullivan. It's another thing to have a legitimate bench. There's a mix in there where you got to develop and you got to promote from within. And again, you don't need to have Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter coming off your bench. That didn't work either. But there's a lot better benches than the Padres have had this year, as Bob Melvin has referenced.
Give me the score update for the Marlins game, because I know
Marlins are going to lose.
Loving this right now.
Marlins are going to lose. I'm going to say
they're
that
going to
right
lose
now.
the third inning.
They're down 4-5 nothing in the second inning. I have no faith. 7-0 in the second inning. They lost. The Reds are hosting the Pirates. Pirates is a bullpen day. They're already on their second pitcher. I think it's a bullpen day. Their second pitcher in the second inning. Then you have the Diamondbacks in New York against the Yankees. Now they're in playoff positioning right now as the second wild card. They're scoreless.
Who cares?
And then you have the Giants tonight at Dodger Stadium.
Oh boy,
their last 9 games are against the Dodgers and the Padres.
The Giants
have not been good.
Won 5 of their last 30 something road games.
Really? I did not realize that.
They are.
Padres will be
bad
in San Francisco next week.
Yeah.
Kevin Acee is our Padres insider. He's going to join us on the other side of a break. Who's in charge right now of the Padres? Is he using the P word? Is the playoff word being thrown out there or not? Kevin Acee, our Padres insider. He'll join us next.
And Jalen breaks out. Braylon down the near sideline. He's gone. And Jalen breaks out. Braylon down the near sideline. He's gone. Hand off to Martin Blake. Made the first guy miss. They hold him up. Down to the goal line. Touchdown.
Under the Friday night lights. The Aztecs open up Mountain West Conference play at Snapdragon Stadium against the Boise State Broncos.
Hey, we got intruders in our house.
Aztecs football is sponsored in part by
Pepsi. Pepsi Zero Sugar is a proud partner of Aztec Nation. All taste, zero compromise. Aztec Shops. ShopAztecs.com is your official source for team apparel. Visit ShopAztecs.com for the latest SDSU gear. Snapdragon. Snapdragon powers extraordinary experiences every day. Toyota. Toyota proudly supports our community and SDSU football. Sycuan Casino and Resort. Michelob Ultra, Kaiser Permanente, for all that is San Diego, for all that is you. Ale Smith, brought to you by Ale Smith Brewing Company, the official craft brewery of San Diego State University Athletics. Brandt Beef, Volkswagen, brought to you by your San Diego County Volkswagen dealers. Whistle Realty, who represents you, matters. Big Fog. Big Fog keeps you cool without getting you wet.
Now we head up to the booth with the voice of the Aztecs, Ted Leitner and Rich Ornberger.
Kevin Acee is our Padres insider. He'll get us ready for this weekend. Padres and Cardinals. Who's in charge right now with Peter dealing with his health issues? Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, joins us next.
All right, this update's brought to you by Staples Stores. Padres, Cardinals, final home game of the season, final home series of the season starts tonight at Petco Park, 6:40 first pitch in a must win game for the Padres. Matt Waldron is on the mound for the team. And the Aztecs, they start conference play tonight at Snapdragon Stadium, 7:30 kick. 5:30 is when our pregame coverage starts right here on San Diego Sports 760. And this update has been brought to you by Staples.
All right, Kevin Acee is our Padres insider. We're trying to connect with him. He has a phone. We have a phone. So try to connect.
Jim Fax.
Yeah, Jim Fax. Exactly. So trying to connect with Kevin Acee. There are questions surrounding the Padres, believe it or not. I know it's a surprise to some.
Some questions, right?
No questions.
No questions at all?
What if we're just like, hey, Kevin.
Like, hey, what's up?
How are you?
He's like,
what are you doing this weekend?
I'm good.
Is there a game tonight? Neat.
There is. There is a game tonight.
And there'll be a winner and a loser?
There will be.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. We'll see you next week.
All right, thanks. Thanks for the insight, Kevin.
We only have one more in-season catch-up. That'll be next weekend when they're in Chicago. Will
One
they
more-
still be mathematically
one more
alive?
in season, and then maybe hopefully
Yeah,
one more
Definitely.
recap of the season after that, and
Definitely.
then by then, who knows if this team will have made any changes?
True. You're saying out of season. You're right. When we talk to Kevin 2 weeks from today, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so we'll see if we can connect with Kevin Acee. Padres, like you said, are sending Matt Waldron to the mound tonight.
Yeah,
The quasi knuckleball pitcher that hasn't really had a ton of success, but it's like, what are you going to do? You don't have Musgrove, you don't have Darvish. Blake Snell's not pitching every day.
Good job with the depth of this team, AJ.
Well, yeah, I think their starting pitching has held up half decently, even without Musgrove and Darvish. It doesn't feel like it's really done them in here in September.
No, not really.
I think their starting pitching it's been good.
Because Blake Snell, I think, is
Yeah.
taken the medium and the average of the starting pitching and is dragged them with them.
True, but it doesn't feel like every fourth or fifth day, like, oh, here we go again. They're down 4-0. Oh, here we go again. They're down. It doesn't seem like that's been the case.
No, but they're giving up runs. I mean, Michael Waka and Seth Lugo aren't the same they were early in the season. They pitched well. They had good seasons.
Oh yeah, really good season.
And I think those two players, especially Lugo, Waka $16 million a year. I would take that if I were him. But yeah, Lugo, I think is going to get a little payday if he opts out here.
I agree with you. I agree. And listen, the truth is, heading into next year, you have two starting pitchers as we know it right now, and they've both been injured. They both might end the year on the IL or will in Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove.
And one of them is injury prone. But with the Padres, there's no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
2 of the last 3 years that he's been here, he's ended his season with injury.
Yeah.
So
you're talking about Darvish.
Yes.
Right. And Musgrove really hasn't until this year. He had been the 180 inning guy.
Mm-hmm.
We gave him credit for it back-to-back years. This year, he's not even at 100 innings.
Right.
Started the season on the IL, ends the season on the IL. Talked to Annie Halburn earlier today and others saying, I actually could ramp up if necessary. We both think that's a little bit comical. By the way, some bad news for the Padres is Cincinnati leading tonight at home in the second inning, 1-0.
Will Holder.
Where's
bro.
Will? This is why I told Will not to go out this weekend. I don't want him doing anything stupid.
Don't do anything stupid.
Stay in a padded room. We're literally in a padded room. Like there's padding everywhere.
There is padding everywhere. And there's a lot of things everywhere in this room.
Now we're gonna do Trainwreck Radio today, right? We got the 4-pack of tickets to Hallow Scream.
Yeah, potentially.
So we'll do. What do you mean? Are we gonna do that today? I'll stick around if we're gonna do Trainwreck Radio. I'll stick around.
We are doing Trainwreck.
Okay, we're gonna do Trainwreck Radio. So we'll do that coming up later.
You're sticking around. We're doing it.
And then at 5 p.m. you're gonna get a healthy dose of Jim Russell.
Oh yeah,
very healthy. We might have Kevin at 5. You might have Kevin at 5.
I might have Kevin at 5.
We'll text Kevin after this and see if he can hop on at 5.
Yeah, Kevin.
Maybe he's talking to like Manny Machado. Maybe he's talking to Eric Krupner.
I highly doubt that.
What about Eric Krupner? AJ
Possibly.
Preller.
Maybe Preller's showing his face again. I don't know.
When Preller spoke to Marty this week, that was just Marty, right?
It was just Marty.
Talk about a great poll.
Nice exclusive.
She's done that how many times the last 3 years? 6, like exclusive, where she's like talking to AJ Preller about Jace Tingler's future.
Talking to Peter Seidler about after 2021. Good for her.
Oh yeah, didn't Peter Seidler say he wasn't scared to give out like a $500 million contract?
Yeah.
After the Soto trade.
Yeah.
So she's had some really good exclusives.
What did you make of what I guess AJ told to Marty? Then hearing Dennis today on Darren reacting to what AJ said.
So okay, so you're saying what AJ told Marty is they talk 5 times a day, and then what Dennis told Darren is that's not what I've been told.
Like, yeah, he's like, through my reporting, I'm not sure about that. Maybe.
But do we really know how often AJ Preller's talking about Melvin?
No, we don't.
You know, like I mean, are they calling? Are they doing it in person? Are they texting?
Yeah. But look, I think the reporting that has been done on this team by the reporters that have done the reporting, like I don't see it as being the actual fact. But I don't also see it being too far off from the truth.
Okay, you're saying you don't see it being too far off from the truth that they don't speak, essentially, or that
the relationship between
they may have a terrible relationship.
Melvin is not the greatest.
They may have a terrible relationship and still speak. It's not like speaking changes the relationship. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just because they speak a lot, well, that's kind of a requirement of the job, is it not? They probably have to speak.
Yeah, but it also goes back to like, I know winning is the only thing, but man, when you have a general manager and your manager, like, not always on the same page and the communication, and Dennis talked about today how there's been times when like players would go like wondering about their roles on the team, and they would talk to Preller and then they talk to Melvin and they get 2 different answers.
Yeah, he wrote about that. Yeah,
and it's like, what? I mean, you can't tell me that's not the definition of dysfunction.
It may be. I don't know what the definition of dysfunction is. Non-functioning, I guess would be. We got Kevin. Let's talk to him. Let's get the open.
Let's do it right now.
All right, Kevin Acee is our Padres insider. He's probably doing things that are more important potentially than speaking with us. Now, Kevin, were you talking potentially with like an executive or a player or like
Manny
doing
Machado?
work potentially? I'm very curious. Like, what have you been up to here this afternoon?
I don't want to say that anything is more important than you guys. But
Okay.
I have not hidden the fact that, like, that story I wrote, a week ago or whatever, should have been titled First in a Series. Like, there's still a lot more to write about this game. So, and I don't think that should be like a huge surprise to anybody that there would be more to discuss besides, just what's going on in the clubhouse. And I alluded to that in the story, but there's other things to look at.
So go on with that, if you wouldn't mind.
No.
He's like,
no. Okay. Let me ask you this: who's in charge of the Padres right now with Peter Seidler's health issues and the statement that the Padres put out earlier in the month? Like, who's overseeing high-level decision-making, maybe involved with Peter or potentially in the absence of Peter's availability?
Well, Peter is still involved. Peter has, while he has definitely stepped in and been a part of virtually every decision, he's always trusted Eric Rufner and AJ Preller, and I think that maybe more so than ever, but Peter is still the guy in charge of the team. But there's stuff they've been talking about for a long time too, and Peter also hasn't been. It's not like this is just a new thing. But that's all I'll say about it. But it's not like this release meant that, or the statement he put out meant that this is a health issue that's a week old or 2 weeks old. So this has been going on, and so it's almost business as usual from what I understand.
Kevin, with the end of the season, they're playing good baseball. If you want to look at it, they're playing the worst teams in baseball, you can. If you want to look at it, they're actually finally playing, decent baseball and they're putting things together, you can as well. But for me, tell me if I'm wrong, like, I feel like the end of this season, if they miss out by a couple games, I hope that's not used as like not an excuse, but just like one of those things where, we were a couple games short and we were a couple games away and we don't have to change too much. And yeah, things are going to obviously change because this whole season was not what we wanted. But hey, look at the end. We just missed out by a couple games. Do you feel like that could be something that's
agree with you more?
Yeah.
Could not agree with you more that I hope no one says that so that I don't have to, stop myself from struggle to not laugh in their face.
Right.
And a couple of them I've had that conversation with that like, you know what, if finishing strong meant anything, they wouldn't have sucked in April and May. If finishing strong meant anything, teams that won the World Series would start out really hot in April. And certainly not with this team. Instead, let's say they go 15-1 at the end or 16-0 and they barely missed out, right? That all that does is accentuate the rest of the season. That doesn't excuse it. That doesn't allow anybody to say, look how close we are and have it really mean anything. I mean, look, they will have been close and it will have shown, so I have these list of 23 games that I have had a chart that I've run a couple times. It was 20 the first time, 23 the second time I ran the chart, probably run it again. That I called like heartbreakers, right? That's not every extra inning game. That's not every 1 run or 2 run loss, but they're games that I believe, I don't think there's any question, they could have won and you could argue should have won. So if they miss out on this thing by 2 or 3 games, like, it's like, well, you didn't even have to go 12-11 in those 23 games. You had to go like 5-18 in those 23 games. So like, if they finish strong, all it does is accentuate what we already know about the team, and that's that they blew it.
Kevin Acee is our Padres insider. He's with us right now on Jon and Jim. So has anything changed, though, in terms of how they're treating these games? Like, are they treating this like, hey, we still have a lot to play for or not? Because Matt Waldron's pitching today, but I see Ha-Seong Kim is back. Blake Snell hasn't been bumped up to Sunday, for example. Not that it's the end-all, be-all. He'd still have 2 starts either way. But, like, are they treating this like, hey, let's see where we land in a few days? Or are they treating this like, hey, we're in the playoff push?
I don't think they are. It's a great question because it's something that I'll have to ask. Like, let's say they win. Let's say they sweep this series, right? Like, what does that change, right? And what does that even change with the mentality? Because I think that really they knew that it was done, right? When they went on this 7. I wrote about it. We may have talked about it, that Houston series, like maybe the rest of us were like, oh, this thing's over. But they weren't. And the reason they weren't is exactly what's happened.
had they just won, gone 2-3 in Houston, and then as they did go 2-3 in Los Angeles, they knew what was coming and that they couldn't rule out a run, even though they hadn't done it again. And I give them credit for doing it now, because even though they're playing terrible teams, they weren't beating terrible teams before. So, but they knew this was coming. So, I don't know that much has changed, except I do think that the players are more relaxed. It just didn't matter anymore. And I'm not saying that it's all that, but some of them have alluded to that, and I think you can see it. Plus, look at the lineups they're running out there. It's not all along. We're almost every night you were this lineup's better than the lineup they're facing. And a few times here recently, even when they're playing the Rockies or the A's, it's yes, you have Xander Bogaerts. A couple times you've had Machado out, but you have Machado, you have Tatis. Yes, but look at Matthew Batten starting virtually every game. Jose Azocar, Eggy Rosario. You've got spare parts in there, and they're winning. And it's just I think they're having fun, and I think that's a big part of it. Now, do they start to stress again when it gets down to the end? I don't know. But as far as the organization, I don't know that Preller's ever given up. I really don't. And I give Bob Melvin credit, I give Preller credit, I give players credit that as much as I think they've handled it pretty well, being fairly straightforward about, wink, wink, we're still in it. But, they kind of knew they were. And then lo and behold, because the other teams are who we thought they were too, the Cubs, the Marlins. That's the thing to me, almost as much as the close game that you lost, because that's first and foremost, is it's not like one of these teams is probably going to get in with 84 wins. Not even 87, which we thought was the floor. And later, I amended that to 85, and it might be 84 now that the 6th seed is in. There is not a great team that suddenly just took it away from them. The Padres simply lost it. That's if they don't make it. I'm allowing myself the 0.2%.
Yeah, it's a very, very low percentage here. Kevin, yesterday, Bob Melvin was asked, it might have been yesterday, it could have been a couple days ago. I don't know, days are kind of running into each other, but asked about his future, if he has been told yet, if he is going to be returning next year. He gave the political answer, until I've been told otherwise, but I'm coaching this thing out. Do you think there's been a decision already made? And how soon do you think after the season ends will we know this decision?
I think it could be fairly soon after the season. If there's been a decision, then Bob hasn't been made aware of it. His answer was the same answer that he gave a month before that. That was predictable. One of those things that always makes me laugh, that people think on the record quotes are better than source quotes.
Right.
Really? You've never said to anyone, hey, I need to tell you this, but don't tell anyone.
Right. Yeah. People don't understand.
That's just the way it is, guys. So, I'm not saying he was lying. I'm just saying, that was the answer that could have been written by any great PR person. So, I think that we'll get it pretty quick. I don't think there's a lot to debate here in terms of where they're at.
Kevin, appreciate it. Enjoy the playoff push that continues tonight at Petco against the St. Louis Cardinals.
Kevin's playoff push is whatever he's working on.
I'm allowing myself that. I will write a game story, and I wrote a game story Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Whereas if people were paying attention, they would see that, especially what was in the paper, would be what we call a main. So that would be a feature on Campusano, a feature on, the starting rotation, something that was more forward-looking, because there was no reason, we thought, to really be looking at those games, right?
Right.
Now, at least for a few days, I'm going to write game stories. Here's what happened tonight and why it impacts the Padres in this season versus a week ago. I'm just writing hey, see you in 24.
I mean, just the idea of them potentially closing 15-1 or better is almost ridiculous, considering the season that they've had, and being 15-1 or better and missing out on the postseason even more ridiculous. Kevin, appreciate it. We'll do it next week from Chicago. Thank you.
Right on.
All right, Jim and Brent react to that on the other side. Plus, give away a 4-pack of tickets to Howl O Scream. We're with you until 5:30. Aztec pregame will begin then. San Diego State, Boise State tonight at 7:30. A 4-pack of tickets to Howl O Scream. Don't call now. We'll give those away coming up next. Plus, reaction to Kevin Acee next on Jon and Jim.
All right, coming up next, your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to SeaWorld's Howl O Scream. Also, we'll react to Kevin Acee coming up next. All right, John has now left for Snapdragon Stadium. Okay, so as my microphone, can you hear me, Brent? I can't even hear myself. Anyway, John's on his way to Snapdragon Stadium, getting ready for pregame. Aztecs, Boise State, kickoff tonight, 7:30. Pregame coverage starts at 5:30 p.m. Real quick, before we head out here to break, the Kevin Acee interview, I thought the most interesting thing of that, Brent, was like the first thing he said was that he's working on some more things. Like more to come. More to come. If anybody thought that what Kevin and what Dennis reported the last, week here was gonna be it, like, oh, you are mistaken. This season can't just go by as we'll get him next year. Like, you can't do that. You can't have this season be a season where it is viewed as, we'll get him in 2024. Like, we'll be better next year. This year was just a fluke. Like, this stuff, this can't happen without not only repercussion, but also consequences. That's how I view it.
It rains, it pours. They'll get it all out in the open now.
When it rains, definitely pours. Is it raining outside? Do you know?
It was when I got here, but I don't think it is anymore.
Oh, well, anyway. All right, so 5:30 pregame coverage coming up next here. We'll dive more into the Aztecs taking on Boise State tonight. Also, some interesting comments today by the Padres CEO, Eric Grupner. We'll get into that. But right now, it's your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to SeaWorld's Hallow Scream at SeaWorld San Diego. With every twist and turn, death-defying drops, all new special effects, and more scares in 4 terror-filled houses will give you something to scream about. There's even more dark magic lurking around every corner with electrifying and mesmerizing live entertainment. The screamiest event of the season is now at SeaWorld San Diego's Hallow Scream, starting September 29th through October 31st, only on select nights. For more information, visit www.seaworldsandiego.com. John, you owe me $150. Caller number 7 right now wins a 4-pack of tickets to SeaWorld's Hallow Scream, 844-570-1360. That's 844-570-1360. Caller number 7, you want a 4-pack of tickets to SeaWorld's Hallow Scream. Coming up next, reaction to more of the Padres, I guess, playoff push. Also, interesting comments today by the Padres CEO, Eric Grupner. And the Aztecs, they take on Boise State. Our pregame cover starts at 5:30. All that coming up next. All right, this update is brought to you by Staples Stores. Padres, they take on the Cardinals tonight for the final 3-game homestand of the season. 6:40 first pitch. Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres tonight. Cubs did win today, so the Padres are 4.5 games back of the final wild card spot with 9 games to play. The Marlins are getting their ass kicked right now, 12-0 by the Brewers. And it's tied in Cincinnati 1-1 as the Cincinnati Reds are taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the Aztecs, they take on Boise State. Huge matchup tonight as conference play gets underway at Snapdragon Stadium. 7:30 kickoff. Our pregame coverage starts at 5:30 right here on San Diego Sports 760. And this update's been brought to you by Staples. All right, final, I guess, segment of Jon and Jim today, because our pregame coverage for the Aztecs Boise State game gets underway at 5:30 down at Snapdragon Stadium. That's where Jon is at right now, him and J.R. Tolver, and I will eventually make my way down there as well. Huge matchup tonight. San Diego State, Boise State, first conference game of the year. I think we can all agree this is, Jon loves to talk about must-win games, right? I'm not saying this is a must-win game, but it's pretty close to it, Brent. You can't lose 3 in a row here. You can't let 2 turn into 3. You can't let 3 turn into 4, and especially to start, your conference play against a team that's supposed to be vying for a Mountain West Conference championship, a team that was picked ahead of you. You're at home Friday night. It's a red out. This is pretty close to a must-win game.
Yeah, you don't want to start the conference 0-1, especially, losing the tiebreaker to a team that could potentially,
be vying for
right,
exactly,
championship game spot. So
yeah, and so this tonight game, if you win it, right, it makes the losses to UCLA and Oregon State a little palpable. Like, I still would say that, if you want to be the big boys, you got to compete with the big boys, and they didn't compete with the big boys as much this year as you would like. But this game means way much more than those 2 games did combined.
Well, and they use those UCLA games and the Oregon State game to get ready for conference.
Yeah.
So
you hope that it got them ready, like you said, for conference play tonight against Boise State. 5:30 pregame, 7:30 kickoff. All right, so we had Kevin on last hour, and I said it to end the hour is like, oh, there's more. There's more coming with this team. It's not just, Manny Machado, there's problems with him in the clubhouse. No, there's still dysfunction with this team with AJ Preller and Bob Melvin. Like, oh no, there's more. Now, what that is, I don't know. Any guess is as good as mine, because what else could there be other than like mass overhaul? If you get rid of Preller or if you get rid of Melvin, that's not really a story. That's going to be hey, here's a press release. We have decided to part ways with so-and-so. So like, what else is there to say about this team internally? What other stories do you think he's working on? Is like that to me that's a huge question. That's a huge eyebrow raiser. I got to keep my eye out to see when this story that Kevin's working on is going to be released again. Like, that is to me a huge thing that that's why he was late today with us. Is like, oh, I'm working on some stuff that, I can't really talk about, but I'm working. And last time he said that, the Manny Machado piece came out.
Well, the way this season's going, it could literally be anything.
Anything. Anything. Yeah, it's very interesting. I can't even think of something to like guess what it would be. Like, oh, is Xander Bogaerts is going to request a trade? Is it Juan Soto's going to want it? Like, if they're trading Juan Soto, like those aren't really in-depth stories. Those are more like just straightforward types of things, right?
Unless it's just more
dysfunction,
more detailed dysfunction. Maybe there's more details on the, relationship between Preller and Baumel, and like I said, it could be anything.
Could be anything.
I literally would not be shocked to wake up, tomorrow or Monday and just whatever comes out, just be like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. I just, and with the health of Peter too, I think that plays a factor in the future of this franchise, at least in the immediate future. Like, who's making the full decisions? Kevin stated there, it's still pretty much status quo, but there are, some pieces here that may be giving more, I guess, power here. Maybe not less like, I can fire this person or you can fire that person, but hey, I need you to actually like make these, like do this and do that. And I know you didn't do that before, but because of Peter, his health and everything, you might be doing a little bit more here. So that's all interesting stuff from Kevin about stories potentially coming out. And it's all in the midst of the Padres playoff push for this season, being 4.5 back with 9 games to play.
Yeah. To be determined.
To be determined, exactly. Even though right now the other teams in front of the Padres are giving Will Holder all the hope in the world. You got the D-backs losing tonight to the Yankees 3-0. Hell, the Padres could be at the 5th seed at the end of this whole stupid thing. I highly, highly doubt it. I'm more tongue-in-cheek there than anything, but you get my point. All these teams in front of them are all losing right now. You got the Marlins getting whooped on by the Brewers 12-0. That game's over.
I think they let Christian Yelich hit 2 home runs in the same inning, I think.
I like how you said they let Christian Yelich hit 2 home runs. The Pirates are now leading the Reds 2-1 in the top of the 5th inning there. All right. And it's the top of the 5th inning. And the Yankees are beating the Diamondbacks 3-0. Any other scores that matter? No. Well, and the Cubs won. So, okay, you got to win tonight. Must win game, Padres fans. Must win game. So this morning on the flagship, you had Padres CEO Eric Grupner finally speak. I think it's been about a month or so since he spoke publicly to anybody about this season. And, the few things that stood out to me were, one, him discussing the roster construction and not really, I guess, throwing a jab at AJ, but it felt kind of like, if you want to interpret it that way, like, hey, we were very top heavy and, we had not a lot of meat on that bone, right? It was very, very hard to compete with not much depth on this team, essentially. But the biggest takeaway for me out of anything, and he didn't even have to like say it for me to talk about it today, because it's been reported on by Kevin and by Dennis and others, right? This payroll is an issue. The money that this team is losing right now, like, is a big issue. This is not something that can be glossed over with a couple moves to help everything out. And hey, by the way, we're fine now. Like, no, you have a 26-man roster next year where 12 of your 26-man roster is making up essentially, give or take a few million, $150 million of your payroll. If you're telling me right now that they're going to stay at a $250 million payroll next year, then I would tell you, okay, they can re-sign Snell. You could, potentially give Soto a big contract if you want to go out and give a contract to another guy to help this team on the bench. Like, okay, but you can't tell me that they're going to have to do that, because I highly doubt they will. So with that being said, you look at this payroll now, and with what Dennis said today on Darren, how like they're selling off parts of the franchise, like trying to get some money back. The TV deal is a huge thing.
That's what I was going to say. The whole Bally bankruptcy thing screwed them, because that was one of those things where, like, you go to apply for like a loan from a bank, they're going to want to know, like, oh, well, what do you have for sources of income? So, in terms of like the Padres, they were like, oh, well, we have this, and then, we have this TV contract.
Right.
And then all of a sudden Bally's like, yeah, we're bums. We don't want to pay our bills. So we're just going to go bankrupt and just file for bankruptcy. Sorry.
Like, oh, here's a massive source of revenue that's generated.
Yeah, exactly. So
not going to have it.
There goes one of their streams of revenue that they, were counting on to pay for all these extra contracts. And, who the hell knows what they're going to do with the TV contract? Because as far as I know, MLB was going to pick up the tab for this year, but they didn't promise anything for next year.
Nope, they did not. You're absolutely right, Brent. I mean, you have a team that gave out hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars this past offseason to only have their TV rights holder go bankrupt, and them to have one of the most disappointing seasons in franchise history. Now, if they had a 95-win team right now, Brent, do you think the money issue changes? I personally think it changes maybe a little, but I don't think it fixes all their problems, to be real with you. I don't think if this team was at 95 wins this year, we still would not be talking about the payroll going down next year. I think it would have gone down no matter what.
It depends, because they won that many games, they'd find some extra sources of revenue,
but not enough. I don't think, not to the point of like, we heard about this word sustainable all off season, right? Sustainable. Well, yes. Did we push back on him? Like, what's sustainable? Peter Seidler. Like, if Peter Seidler's here, that could be sustainable. But now you get into the weeds here a little bit and you start seeing, stories written about how they're like selling off parts of the franchise and they're really money strung here, and the noise of the Padres spending issues and the money with this team isn't just quiet whispers. It's loud screams. Like, it is known, as Dennis talked about today on Darren, that it's known that this team is in trouble money-wise. Like, it's in trouble. So you look at next year, and I say to everybody that is screaming from the mountaintops, run it back. It'll be fine. Next year it can't be worse than this year. You can have players they're gonna have way better years next year, bounce back seasons. Everything will be okay. Yeah, no. There's a part of that could be true. Could Manny Machado actually have a good season? Right? Yeah, he could. He could have an absolute bounce back year next year if he's healthy and he actually performs to his capability. Could Xander Bogaerts have a bounce back season next year? Absolutely. With the September surge that Xander has had here for this team, is it a sign that he's finally healthy and he's figured out how to, take care of his wrist and he can use that for an entire season and plan out his cortisone shots when needed and do what he's done this September for a majority of next year, right? Yeah, of course. I mean, people say Xander Bogaerts now, if you look at his numbers, just the numbers he has this year, you could say it's a good season. But to me, I view his numbers this year a little fake. I mean, a little stat padding at the end. I mean, Xander, as far as the back of his baseball card numbers go, it's going to look fine. It's going to look good. But you also can't tell me he didn't have a bad year, because he did. There was a lot of times this year Xander Bogaerts was in situations where he had opportunities to help this team out, and he didn't. And he extremely underperformed. So it's not just as simple, guys, as saying bring everybody back. It's going to be fine next year, because they literally can't bring everybody back. They physically, money-wise, can't bring everybody back. It just isn't going to happen. So that is now another storyline going into this offseason. That is a major, major storyline for me, along with the direction you're going to go with the manager. What's the direction you're going to do with the general manager, even though I think it's virtual lock that he's going to be here? What are you going to do with Juan Soto? What are you going to do with the remainder of your roster? The money, Peter Seidler's health. Like, dude, there are so many freaking storylines going into the season that why I'm looking at this end of the year is not meaning much to me is because those things that I just listed off there, to me, mean way more than a little fake, nice, whatever you want to call it, winning streak at the end of a horrible, disastrous season to potentially get you just close to making the postseason as a 6 seed, but in the end, not making it. Like, that to me doesn't mean jack you know what. It can to you, and I know that fans out there are like, dude, just let me have this. Let me just have this. This whole season's been crap. I want to just root for something, and I get that. But don't you want to root for something better than just like sneaking in? Don't you want to root for something better than just getting by? Like the point of what this team has now set for expectations is to root for a team that's vying for divisions and World Series. If you want to now just take those expectations and completely lower them to like near the bottom, like just accept, like if you want, like if your standard in school is A's, right? Like you go into a school year, you're like, I'm getting A's all year long. And you just happen to end the year of your school year and you show your report card to your parents and you're like, well, I got C minuses. I still passed, right? That's okay. And the parents like, that's okay, little Jimmy. We know that the whole year you were, 4.0 GPA, right? We said if you got a 4.0 GPA, we'd give you the car. Well, you know what? At least you passed. So we'll still give you the car for your acceptable 2.3 GPA. Like, nah, dude. You got to have expectations here, guys. You just have to. And I think I would hope most people feel the same way, is that this is not good enough and that it's kind of a little fun thing to end the season. But the second the season ends, Brent, you know how fast people are going to forget about this whatever winning streak to end the year? Guarantee you it will be like that.
Dude, if they lose tonight, they'll forget about it by Sunday. If it even takes by Sunday.
They'll forget about it by midnight.
Tomorrow. So, yeah.
Exactly. 844-570-1360. If you want to call in here, we got a couple more minutes before we take you out to Aztecs pregame at Snapdragon Stadium as the Aztecs take on Boise State tonight. 7:30 kickoff. J.R. Tolver and John Schaefer and maybe me eventually. We'll get down there to Snapdragon Stadium. Let's go to Dave on line 4. Dave, what's up, man? How you doing today?
Jimmy, look, thank you for bringing up the television issue. I brought it up before. John poo-pooed it. Yeah. It's not a poo-poo. Let me tell you what. I've done some research on this. Sports Business Journal said the top TV rating for San Diego Padres after MLB took over was the best they could muster was 59,000 viewers. 59,000 in a county of close to 4 mil.
Yeah.
So how in the hell do you begin to sell that kind of viewership to advertisers to make up $66 million? That's where Bally's went screwy. And they didn't understand the market. They didn't understand that we don't have the business backing here of corporate and retail that's going to buy that kind of advertising. I mean, 59,000 is not going to buy you a hell of a lot of revenue on ads. And then try to make that up in subscriber fares. It's not going to work. I mean, you'd have to charge people like $500 a year that way.
I know. Thanks, Dave, for the call, man. I get it, dude. The TV deal is a problem. And it's a problem because they didn't win this year. Like, these issues arise when you don't win. And then make it becomes bigger issues. So yeah, the TV deal is a problem. Let's quickly go out to John here on line 5. John, what you got, man?
Cadillac John, happy Friday. What up?
What up, Cadillac John? How you doing, man? Real quick, what do you got?
What up, guys? So listen, my thought is this. If any one individual wins any accolades, that's a loss. How could anybody be happy on a team that the whole team lost? Even if Blake Snell wins the Cy Young, you should give it back. It's like, what's the point? It's like if John gets a raise and Jim gets written up, you'll be happy?
John will be happy.
Come up. I love you guys.
Thanks, Cadillac John. Appreciate it. I look, Blake Snell's going to Cy Young. Good for him. He's going to make $200 million potentially. Like I would. It's a team sport, but like at this point in the season, Blake Snell is looking towards the future. And I do you blame him? No, that's just who he is. Is he going to go out there and pitch 4 more times to the Padres the next 9 days, or 3 more times, and potentially hurt himself to go into a massive payday at the end of the year? No chance in hell.
Yeah,
no. He's the type of, we know Blake Snell. All right. He's going to win the Cy Young.
He's going to win the Cy Young. He's going to get paid. Good for him, man.
Good for him.
He had a great year.
Right.
And I'll be the first to admit, I didn't think he could, we're Paul at this word. I didn't think he could sustain that for the whole year.
Me neither.
And he did. I was wrong. So, good job, Blake. You win the Cy Young. You deserve it. You deserve the fat paycheck you're going to get for it too.
Right. Here's your flowers, man. It just sucks that this fan base is going to have to celebrate a Cy Young Award winner next year that isn't on the team. You know, he's not going to be here. He's going to come back in a different uniform, and he's going to be presented a Cy Young Award win, trophy, and then he's going to pitch against the Padres. That's what's going to happen. They gave the money to Musgrove, they gave the money to Darvish, and that's who they chose. So it is what it is at this point. It is what it is. But hey, sweep the Cardinals this weekend and talk to me on Monday. All right, that's going to do it here for Jon and Jim. Aztec pregame show coming up for you next. John Schaefer, who's at Snapdragon Stadium right now, ditched us early. It's fine, whatever. J.R. Tolver, also at Snapdragon Stadium. We'll get you ready for Aztecs Boise State. It is a readout tonight. Snapdragon Stadium. Kickoffs at 7:30. Huge matchup is this first game inside conference. Coming up next, our Aztec pregame show gets underway at Snapdragon Stadium. Stay right here on San Diego Sports 760.